To go live. All right. Welcome to Can We Have a Conversation? We have a friend of mine all the way from, tell him where you're from.
I'm
Where are
from
you right
Stockholm,
now?
Sweden. I'm in Dubai right now, but originally I'm from Stockholm, Sweden.
From Sweden, staying in Dubai. And this brother he and I met about 3 years ago in San Quentin. Um, I was very impressed with him and who he is and just his relationship with God and how he was trying to make a difference in the prisons. And so I just said I had to get an opportunity to interview him. He also was one of the brothers that gave me an opportunity to use all his music for my documentary. He said whatever I wanted to use, go ahead, feel free to use it. And so David Jazzy, welcome to the show. Can we have a conversation?
Thank you so much, man. It's an honor for me to be here. I remember you coming into San Quentin, and I was always amazed of how you really had a genuine heart and really wanted to connect fathers with his sons, and that really struck a chord with me. So it's an honor to be on your show, man. And we, we're both on the other side of the fence now, so it's beautiful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I have so much I want to share with you, and I'm gonna tell you right now, uh, Jazz, it's gonna go fast, man. This hour is gonna go so quick. Before you know it, I'm gonna tell you, well, this is it. But I'm gonna try to get in as much as I can get while we gonna do it. Is that all
All
right?
right. Yeah, I'm ready for you.
Okay. So, kind of walk with me about what you do and your music, and how'd you come into doing music?
So I started at a very early age. I got introduced to like the hip hop culture when it came to Sweden in the 80s. And I started b-boying, I was involved with graffiti. I eventually started beatboxing, and beatboxing eventually led me to rapping. And just as in America, in Sweden, we had a lot of hip hop jams and we had a lot of youth centers. And the older people in the youth centers, they saw a lot of us younger kids. They saw that we were creative, but they also saw the dangers of the streets. So they kind of like draw us in into the youth center, and they provided us with samplers and microphones, and so we could basically just learn the technique of what it was like to be in a real studio. They had like a mini stage, so we started performing and putting together our own little shows. And at every school break, the last day of school, there was a tradition in my neighborhood that people, it was kind of like a talent show. So people from the neighborhood performed different things. So we started using that every year and basically practicing the whole year just for that talent show every year. We just wanted to have the best show. So that's kind of how I got introduced to just performing and being, uh, you know, involved in music. And that later on led to me basically going around to different youth centers all over Stockholm and performing, which eventually led me to getting a record deal when I was 17 years old. So it's been something I've been doing since I was very very young, and I have a true passion for it. So it's always been a part of my life. I always knew at a very early age that I wanted to do music.
Now you not only rap, you also sing and you play the guitar as well, right?
Sorry.
I said you don't only rap, you also play the guitar and you sing as well, right?
Yeah, somewhat. I sing. I'm singing all right, but yeah, I play a little bit of keyboard, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of drums. But yeah, I'm a producer, so I produce most of my songs electronically, but I also involve a lot of acoustic instruments in my productions. But for me, usually I like to write my songs either on a piano or guitar because I feel like if the song doesn't sound good on a guitar or piano, it's not going to matter how much production you put around it. But the song in itself, if it's a really strong song, it should survive simply with a piano and or a guitar. And then I usually add layers to it in a production. But sometimes, of course, I start with beats and I just start rapping to it. But most of the time, when I do the songwriting, when I do work for like R&B artists or pop artists, I usually start with just a piano or a keyboard.
Right, right. So tell me this, man. Let's kind of talk about what happened in LA when you were in LA. Were you in LA to do music before you caught a case?
Yeah, so I came to LA in 2005 at first. I went to Santa Monica College, and I was basically taking a business degree in LA. But slowly but surely, I started getting in. Excuse me. I started getting into the music industry and just moving around in different circles. And I actually went back to Sweden and worked as a marketing executive for 2 years for a finance company. And during that time, when I made that switch, I had a song with Ashley Tisdale that made it to the number 5 spot, no, the number 5 spot on the Billboard chart. So I was like, whoa, what am I doing? Let me go back to LA and just continue this because it seems like my music is taking off. So I went back to LA and I was there for a year back and forth. And then eventually I decided, you know what, I'm going to stay here for 3 months in a row. And during that trip, I was in LA for 46 days. And during that time, I was in the studio with another Swedish producer called Bloodshy. We were working on the upcoming Britney Spears record. And then I also worked with another team from Sweden called Red Fly. And we were working with Ashley Tisdale, Heidi Montag, and another artist called Cherise. So there was a lot of stuff going on in a very short period of time. And I was taking a lot of meetings and things were really going well and really started to look up. And it was only 6 weeks into that stay that I eventually made the worst mistake of my life. And I got into this altercation in Hollywood, which eventually led me to prison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what happened?
I hear you quite bad right now.
Oh, okay. I said, what happened in that event?
Oh, so that particular night, I was out with my friends. Originally, I was supposed to stay home. I was working on some projects, and my friends wanted to go out and party. And I told them I got a session coming up on Tuesday. I got to stay in. And they left me alone. They came back an hour later, and they were like, "Come on, we really need a designated driver today." And deep inside, I knew like I have to stay in. I have to stay in. I have to get this work done. They left me alone, came in a little bit later again. It's like, come on, man, let's go out. You work all the time. Let's just go out and have fun. And against my intuition, I went. And first we went to this bar, didn't stay there for a long time. And eventually we went to another club. And as I left that club, 1 in the morning, I had my car valet parked. And there was an undercover cop that walked up to me and said, "You got to move your car because we got a sting operation." And I had my ex-girlfriend standing outside the car, and I was just waiting for my friend to get his jacket. So I asked him, I said, "Can you just wait like 2 minutes?" And because I'm living straight off North Crescent Heights, just straight up from Sunset Boulevard. And he was like, "No, you got to move your car now." So I told my ex-girlfriend to jump into the car, and we crossed the corner and crossed the block because he was like, "I don't care what you do, just spin around the block if you want to pick up your friend." And I wasn't supposed to spin around the block, but I did. And as I crossed that section, I suddenly heard a loud bang, just a really, really loud sound on my right side. So I hit the brakes, and I saw this man who was under the influence beating on my car and kicking on my car and try to open my girlfriend's door. And at that point, I just jumped out the car and I lost it. I got heated, and we got into a heated argument, and we got into an altercation. And unfortunately, he fell backwards and he hit his head on the ground. I jumped back into my car, and as I ran back into my car, another man came running from the left side, making a motion as if he was gonna take up a gun. And he started banging on the driver's seat window, try to break it. So I just hit the car and started going, and he was pretty much holding on to the handle of the door. And I was just speeding through Hollywood, went home, woke up the next morning with LAPD officers at my door, arrested me and my girlfriend, took me to the LAPD Hollywood station. And during the interview, I found out that the man that I had an altercation with had died. And they also asked me questions whether I felt something when I left the scene. because there were witness reports saying that the rear tire of my car went over his legs when I made the turn.
Mm-hmm.
But at this time, I had all my attention on the other man that was banging on my window.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately, broke down, because it was like nothing that I could have foreseen that would happen. I came to LA to really work as a professional. I really had the best of intentions. And here I allowed my temper to get the best of me and go out and have a fight with this man that I didn't even know. And now he has lost his life over something so trivial. So, of course, it was a lot of guilt, a lot of sadness. My mom was murdered when I was 17. So I also felt for his family and what they were going through, of course. And the fact that I had a son back home in Sweden. So it was a lot to take in those few seconds, and I just broke down, because I was like, wow, this is like everything I always worked for all my life, and here I am in this crazy situation, and it just turned deadly and so tragic, where an innocent man lost his life. So yeah, it was really hard, and it was like the introduction to this long journey that I was going on. I was shipped to LA County Jail, and I mean, LA County Jail for a regular American would be a shock, but when you come from a different country in Europe with a whole different culture, and just learning all the codes and all the slang and everything, it was very traumatic in the beginning. But I just had to survive. I had to maintain, and I just did the best that I could with the situation and the card that I was handled. So, but it was definitely tough.
No, absolutely. I always can hear in your voice your sincerity and your apologetic, because of what had happened. And I was walking this morning. I was thinking about you because I was listening about the story of Joseph, and you and I have talked about this before. That just it for me, when I think about your story, I think about Joseph. But the Bible says that when Joseph was in prison, he prospered, and that there was nothing that he could not do that the warden would not allow him to do. And there was favor um, when you were in prison, even though that might not have been the place you wanted to be at that time. God used your gift in that environment to separate gang members, to bring everybody on one accord. And you didn't promote any type of negativity type, negative music or anything of that nature. You really wanted to be clean and positive and something that young people could walk away with. We want you to share that about, how folks was coming up to your sales and you had a keyboard. Kind of tell that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. So to me, it was kind of like a full circle. In the beginning, all I had was a guitar. In my first year suspended in Solano State Prison in Vacaville in the Bay Area. And at that place, all I had was a guitar. Then eventually, when I transferred to San Quentin, I saw that there was a few keyboards around. So I asked around, and everybody was like, no, you can't get a keyboard. And just so happened to be Marcelo Gator, who had been down for 40-some years, had a good relationship with the guy at R&R. At this time, I didn't know that. So I just called my friend in Sweden and said, because I found a catalog, I said, you know what? Try to order this keyboard, because I found a really good keyboard where you can record 64 songs on this particular keyboard. And I knew I wasn't allowed to have it, but I was just like, let's try to order it and see what happens. So I went back to my cell. I prayed about it. I said, God, use me. And I ordered the keyboard. And, when the keyboard came, just so happened to be Marcelo Gator happened to be at R&R, which is receive and release in every prison. And he seen my name on the box. So he asked the CEO, he was like, what you gonna do with that box? He said, oh, well, it's Jassy. He ordered it. He can't have it. So we're gonna send it back. And then Gator was like, nah, don't send it back. He gonna teach me how to play piano. And they were like, Gator, you ain't gonna play no piano. But long story short, he ran back. He told him like, all right, just tell your cellie that he got 15 minutes to come get the keyboard. So Gator come up to the cell running like, man, get your behind down there and take care of that right now.
Right.
So I ran down and I was so happy, and I was just walking past the yard with his keyboard, and it felt like a whole new world had opened up, and with like a million of opportunities. Because in prison we just make a way, even though it's like makeshift, we just figure out a way to make this thing work. And at the time I worked in the media center, so I was editing stories for the San Quentin Prison Report. But those computers didn't have no software that you could make music with. They just had a microphone and you could edit WAV files. So at first I just started making beats outside of my cell. And I'm a rapper too, so I started making beats and I started rapping to it. And a lot of people started gathering outside my cell, and it was like, man, you made that? Like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm a producer. Because I didn't talk about it a lot before I got the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
So more and more people started coming outside my cell and they started rapping, and we started having like different freestyle ciphers outside of my cell. And I noticed that there was people from different gangs that normally don't talk to each other, all of a sudden standing there, and they were busting different 16 and different ciphers. And I was like seeing a community, and it brought me back to my old neighborhood and how the music unified us. Because in my neighborhood, Blue Hill, it's 8 buildings, but it's 6,000 people in those 8 buildings. So it's similar to what you guys call a project. Mm-hmm. But you have people from 100 different countries. So you have people all over the world. But one unifying factor was always sports or music, or like these type of things. Mm-hmm. So I kind of recognized that energy, and I thought it was beautiful. So at first I did a mixtape called David versus Goliath, and I just allowed any rapper, no matter young or old, to get on the mixtape. And I played it on the institutional channel. It was like a 1 hour long that I produced and I put together, and I just brought everybody in. And then in 2016, there was a legislation in California which enabled youthful offenders to come to San Quentin to participate in the programs that they had. And a lot of them came in, but they weren't really feeling welcomed in a lot of the groups like GRIP, Guiding Rage into Power, and all these long-term different groups that they had at San Quentin, where a lot of the more seasoned lifers were really, you know, verbal and eloquent and speaking in a way that the youngsters couldn't really relate to. And a lot of the youngsters that I spoke to felt that they were talked down onto. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these same youngsters always ended up on the 5th tier, where they usually have squabbles. Every night was a squabble. And I could see a lot of them didn't want to be there. It was a lot of peer pressure, was a lot of traffic, and a lot of stuff going on. But to me, as I saw them, I was like, man, they like my son's age, you know, real young. And I could see the fear in their eyes just being on that yard, but at the same time putting up this big facade that they really about it. And a lot of the guys that walked around with a chest out is usually the one that got into trouble, because somebody's going to test them. Mm-hmm. So I thought about, what if we do a youthful offender mixtape for these guys, where they can come in and tell their stories, but instead of glorifying crime and glorifying violence or talking down to women, why don't we put a different message out to the younger kids that's coming behind us? And I just saw an opportunity, because I knew that if we would come out with a mixtape from prison, everybody would already had a bias and a prejudice about what the message was going to be. And it's like, oh, here we go. You know, here we got convicted criminals that are allowed to make gangster rap, and they just perpetuate in the same generational trauma. And to me, it didn't sit right to come out with that message. So I spoke to a few cats in there and I presented the idea. But before I did that, I started talking to Lieutenant Robinson. And I caught up with him on the yard and I asked him, I said, what do you think about this idea? And he was like, you know, I'm not really sure what you're going to do, but I mean, you can do it, you can record it, but you can't release it. But let's start with a few guys and let's see what it is. You need a curriculum and all of this, right? At the time, all I had was an idea. But as soon as he gave me that, go ahead and try it, I was just unstoppable. It was just so many ideas that just came to me, and I just saw so many opportunities, how we can reach the guys in juvenile halls. We could play it on the institutional channel and like having uplifting songs, no matter if you're young or old. It could be like songs that gives you hope. I just wanted to bring like a different light to hip hop, because when I came into hip hop was kind of a way out of the gangs. It was, you know, in the Bronx when they were like, instead of fighting and killing each other, we can battle in breaking or rapping or DJing, and like use the culture to create instead of just tearing our community down. So I kind of wanted to bring that element in, and just being a lifer and waking up in prison every morning, you just don't want anybody to go through that. So I was just seeing these young kids, and I knew that they were reputable in their hoods. There were guys from Watts, from Compton, from East Oakland, from Richmond, all over California. And I knew if those guys were reputable in their hood amongst the younger kids, and they come out and they tell them like, look, this ain't the way. Like, yeah, I was about that street life. They can talk about it, but they can also talk about the consequences, what it led to. Because a lot of the rappers that you hear that are making millions on this and now living in a villa or a mansion, they perpetuating that message, and some kids are taking on to that. I met a lot of kids in there that said that they were influenced by gangster rap. And I'm not saying that gangster rap is the only reason why people commit crimes. I'm definitely not saying that. There's a lot of social issues, not only in America, but all over the world. There's a lot of segregation. There's a lot of differences in class, you know. And there's an oppression, especially in America, that's been going on for many hundreds of years. And there's long-term effect. But my thing was, we as the people could still see what is going on, and don't allow the divide and conquer to separate us into different groups where we war against each other. But we could come together. You know, it sounds very hippie and cliche and whatever, but to me, it's like, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it? I'm here at this position right now. I have a very unique opportunity to put together these guys that, because when I had the conversations with them, all of them was like, man, I wish I stayed in school. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. But then the raps didn't reflect that same thing. The raps were still, I'm about it, I'm carrying these, you know. So I was like, why don't you say that? And one guy who was talking about, man, I miss my daughter. I said, make a song about that. Talk about what it feels like to miss your daughter, what it feels like to just put a hand up in county jail. That's the only way you can touch your family. You can't hug your family. You know, like these guys were 18 years old. Their friends were going to school, getting college degrees, going to clubs, whatever they were doing. They were missing out on all of that, and they had long life sentences. So I gathered a group together, and I sat them down, and I used an example, and I said, if you were out in the desert and you walk by and there's a big pit in the ground and it's just fire coming out of it, and you're walking past that pit fire, or you come out of it, you see all of these young kids walking towards you, would you tell them, go ahead, go jump in that fire, when you know they're gonna burn because it's cool? Or would you rather advise them to say, bro, I already been there and I've seen it, it's not worth it, take a different route? And from that example, we just started this whole discussion about, what would you tell your 12-year-old self? You could talk to him right now. And all of them were like, man, don't fall for that peer pressure, man. Don't fall for that peer pressure. And I said, what would you tell your younger siblings? You know, would you tell them that gangbanging is cool and you're gonna make a lot of money, and or risking up taking this route? And I'm not only attacking gangs, because I don't want to attack nobody really. I just want to find a solution out of the situation that the status quo is in right now.
No, absolutely.
Like something positive to just bring some new energy into hip hop that could inspire others, because we could only do so little in San Quentin, but it could inspire. And, you know, Common started the same program in Chicago now after he visited our program. And they played the mixtape eventually at Rikers Island as well. So the message is still spreading, and I get contacted all the time by other people that want to start the same project.
No,
But
I was very impressed, man, with the way that you. I mean, that was a God thing, man. And I know growing up in East Oakland and knowing how the gangs click, and to be able to see different gangs rap together when they can't even get along and they got beef for whatever reason. I mean, that was God using you in the midst of all of that chaos and all that confusion. And even the you know, even when I go into San Quentin, as you used to see me come in on Tuesdays, I would have these conversations with these guys, man. And these conversations would be just like you said, they knew before they committed a crime or before something went south, they had that feeling that they shouldn't go out or they shouldn't do this, but they went ahead and did it again. And it's like, I wish I could go back and relive that last 15 minutes because, that last 15 minutes gave me like 50 years to life. And these young guys at that, man, I don't know. Do you have any of that music on you now that you could play one of those songs?
I mean, I do.
I didn't.
Want me to play through here right now?
Yeah, play one of them for us.
I don't think that's Spotify.
Because when I heard it, man,
I don't know how well you're gonna hear it because I'll play it through my laptop. But yeah, there's a lot of different stories that
I had interviewed the grandfather and you did a son. You did one with a grandfather and a grandson, and I interviewed them when I came in there. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So that was Dinero G, and Dinero G was also one of those examples where he ran with the Paisas. Basically, the Paisas in prison are Mexicans that are born outside of America. Mm-hmm. And so he, usually they don't associate with people of color. Mm-hmm. But he walked up to me one day with his friend, and he didn't even say anything. His friend was talking for him. And he was like, my friend here, he's rapping. Would you allow a Mexican to be part of your mixtape? I said, of course. To me, growing up where I grew up, we didn't care about what country a person came from. We were looking at if you're cool or not. Because my neighborhood, like I told you, from all over the world. So I didn't have that bias that a lot of other people had because they had a different history with them. They had been in wars with them, and I didn't have any of that. I just came in and I just saw people. And I said, of course. And he was kind of apprehensive at first. And we spun around the yard a lot of times. We took a lot of laps around just talking. And even that in prison can look suspicious because usually when you see that, it's usually some kind of deal going on.
Yeah.
And his homies was always asking him every time we passed their spot, right? They was like, "You all right? You all right?" They was always checking, and people. I was like, "Man, we good." And yeah. I could just tell like the burning desire he had for music, and how he used to be a rapper on the street. And he even had a song with Burner from the Bay Area that he had released that did pretty good. And they played it on that radio station in the Bay Area. I can't remember the name, of Fizzle or something like that, Fizzler or something like that. I don't know. I'm not from there, but I know they got like a rap radio station that was big over there. And he had a little airplay, but he got caught up in a criminal lifestyle, and he was young. He was 19. And he was like, "Man, I really want to work with this when I get out. I really want to work with this. And if you give me a shot, I'm going to take it serious," and back and forth. So he came with different lines and different lyrics, and we just started slowly collaborating. And one day he came down to the studio and he just started rapping a song, which he already had the hook for. And I was just listening to the verses. And in the middle of the verse, he said, "Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can beat it for my own daughter." I was like, wait, stop, what? I said, "Run that back one time." He said, "Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather." So I was like, "Damn, your grandfather was at San Quentin too?" It's like, "Yeah, my grandfather was here, when my mother was 13 years old and pregnant with me. And not only was he in San Quentin, but he was also same West Block on the same tier, just a few doors down. So I was like, whoa, this is like real generational trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The fact that he ended up at the same spot, and he was like, man, I got a daughter now. I want to break the cycle, man. I want to get out. I want to do something positive. I want to be the first one to like break this. And I could see that he really wanted to, but he still had one foot, you know, in the other world.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is very hard not to have if you're in prison.
Absolutely.
Because it's a very fine line you got to walk in order to just live a normal prison life. And
so
the younger you are, the easier you get influenced by different factors. So anyway, I told him, I said, that line is so impactful to me. I think you should make that the hook. I said, why don't you rewrite it and use that as the hook and come back? And he did. Came back only the day after, the next day. My battery's running low. I got to start.
So man, let me just say,
he came back and basically
let me just say, because there's some people who probably just joined us. I'm interviewing David Jazzy. Lives in Dubai now, from Sweden. Met him in San Quentin. He's a producer, writer, rapper, and we're having a conversation about, you know, his life, having a conversation about him doing music, his journey in San Quentin State Prison, as well as his life now out of prison. He's gonna play a song for us that they did while it was a track that he did when he was in San Quentin with some of the other inmates. Whenever you're ready to play it, Dave.
Sorry.
That's okay. If you want to play it now?
Yeah, the thing is, I think somebody called me and therefore your sound just got lower. So
okay.
I may have to go in and out real quick.
Okay. Go ahead, do what you got to do if you can't hear me.
All right.
Okay.
So annoying.
David's going to come back, join us again, but this is a brother that I met when I was in San Quentin. He had been working with some really great people in San Quentin and even out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, David, was it Kim Kardashian that helped you get out?
Yeah, so in the middle of the program, there was more and more word getting out. There was a few news stations that came there to see what we were doing in the program. And I was also working alongside an organization called Cut 50 with Van Jones and Jessica Jackson. So they started bringing in different people, different volunteers, different sponsors. They brought in a lady called Jamie Lunder, who donated a very generous sum to help me buy better equipment. Another producer called Greg Wells, who produced for Katy Perry and Adele and a lot of other people, came in and donated a new computer, and he also contacted a lot of software companies. So they gave us a lot of the latest software companies. Van Jones and Jessica Jackson did a lot of work with Rock Nation. And they got a lot of different people involved from Rock Nation, hearing what we were doing, and we started negotiation with Rock Nation. And Scott Budnick came in with Common, and we had a conversation, and I played him the whole mixtape. And I walked him around the prison. He was like really down to earth, and even played b-ball with the people on a yard, and like really cool. And I could tell like he was genuinely interested in the program. And we talked about a collaboration for future events. And Scott Budnick also came in with J. Cole. And that was really cool because a lot of the guys, like Dinero G, for example, was there, and he got to see J. Cole rap in front of everybody. But that was for the whole media center. It wasn't just for the YOP mixtape, but he brought him in to meet guys at San Quentin. And so we slowly started talking to a lot of different people. And then eventually Kim Kardashian wanted to come in with Jessica Jackson, because Jessica Jackson works with Kim Kardashian and helped her along with another lady to become a lawyer. So she was interested in the program, and she came in one day in San Quentin, and we had a meeting in the studio, and she stayed for a long time and was genuinely interested in, you know, all the different stories of the guys. And I played her all the songs, and after each song she stopped and she asked about the name of the guy and how he came to write that song and what their story was. So she was, out of all the people that came in, I gotta say, like, Kim Kardashian was truly, truly genuine, and I really felt a different kind of passion from her. And she continued to send people in and just inquiring about the mixtape program, and were really, really adamant in talking to different people about it as well. She went on The View and talked about the program, and we never asked her to do it. She just did it without us even asking it. So in 2017, I filed for a commutation. And, you know, getting a commutation in California is like hitting the lottery. It's like something we do, but we don't expect anything to happen, because it's 140,000 people incarcerated in California, and out of those, 40,000 are lifers. And usually when somebody gets commuted, it's maybe like 20 people, if that, and usually for crimes that are not that serious. And it's very hard to get commuted. But I filed for a commutation in 2017. And doing the work with the San Quentin mixtape, I got to know more and more people, and more people started asking about my case and started asking about me and the fact that I'm from Sweden. And they started to gain an interest for my case, and they realized that the mistakes I made and the terrible decisions I made didn't define me. And that there was more to it, and they could see the change. I had took several programs. I was constantly expressing my accountability of the crime that I committed. I didn't have any intention to kill, but I did commit a crime, and I did commit assault, which unfortunately led the man to die. But it was something that I worked with a lot in groups and in prayers, in meditation. And I felt like I came to America with a big dream. I wanted to contribute positively to the community. And here I came, and I just made the worst thing a person could do. So I constantly felt that I need to give back. I need to give out good. And I had learned from that incident. I have took a lot of groups, so from what I heard from people, they could see that work in me, and they could tell that my intentions were genuine. So I started receiving support letters from politicians, from other inmates that participated in my programs, from different artists in the industry, and different people in general, even, you know, some of the CEOs that have seen the work with the youngsters. And I filed for the commutation in 2017, but it wasn't until 2020 I just woke up, and they brought me down to one of the barracks, and me and another guy called Fanon, who had 210 years to life, and another guy who had 50 years to life. And they just brought us into those barracks, and they gave us the news that, you know, the governor had took a look at our case, and in my case, he liked the programming I had done, and the work I've done with the youth, and he, you know, commuted my sentence with immediate release within 5 days. And it was a shock, you know. It was like,
yeah. Yeah. Um, I think you froze. One of the things that I love to talk about in these last few 15 minutes is the fact that how your relationship with your father um, played a part in your life. Think we I think we have about 14 minutes to have this discussion. I think he's froze for a minute. He's gonna come back and then talk about this with us. I hope if you're new and you just joined, we have a guest speaker here. Uh, his name is David Jazzy. He's from Sweden. He now lives in Dubai. I met him in San Quentin State Prison about 3 years ago. He is a producer, music um, producer, rapper. I mean, very gifted, talented guy. And I just want to play one of his songs. He did a bunch of rap songs with the inmates, speaking positive about their relationships with other young men, kind of helping them to understand the mistakes that they've made and how that impacted their lives and how it's continuously impacting their lives. But they want to speak positive. They don't want to give negative feedback to these young people talking about, it's real good to be in prison and living that gangster life or whatever. But they're saying, hey, look, I made a mistake, and this is not a place that you need to do it. But they wrote it down into verses where they can rap it, and then they have what is called a San Quentin um, track, which is a bunch of rappers from just all over the place that are prisoners or inmates in San Quentin that are giving them the opportunity to voice and to share who they are, the mistakes that they've made, and just you got Crips and Bloods and Tringos and all different type of uh, rap groups adding together to come together. Hey, Jazz, sorry about that. I was just sharing with our audience who you are and some of the things that you have done while you were in San Quentin as well as out of San Quentin. We got about like less than 12 minutes, man. So I'm probably going to have you play the song at the end. But this last part, I just kind of want to talk about your father and your relationship with your father. I think you said that your father left when you were 4 years old. He moved to Africa. Kind of tell me about your relationship with your father and not having a father in your life. How has that impacted your life?
Mm. So yeah, my dad was a doctor from the Gambia, West Africa, and he studied in Russia and eventually came to Sweden and met my mom. And at the age of 4, he was supposed to go back to the Gambia because he wanted to build a clinic in the Gambia. Because the reason he started a clinic was because a lot of the women in his village couldn't give birth safely because they had to travel on this long country road to get to the hospitals in the city. So he was fighting of having that vision to build that clinic in Africa and take care of all those people for everything that he studied versus his family in Sweden. And when he left, I thought he was going to come back in, a couple of months or whatever. And eventually we just lost contact. And I grew up with my mom. But I was always interested in Gambian culture. In my neighborhood, I knew a lot of people from the Gambia who also taught me how to speak a little bit of Wolof, which is one of the languages in Gambia. And I was very interested in a culture, but I always felt that void. I always felt the void of having a father figure. And a lot of my father figures became the rappers that I was listening to, like Run DMC, LL Cool J, like all those rappers, Rakim. They became my fathers. I got all the game from just listening to them. And those became my role models, or like the older guys in my neighborhood. But I always felt that there was that part missing in my life. And when I was 17, my other sister, she got married in Italy. And on our way home from that wedding, my mom and me and my sister and my brother, we was in a car going. And there was a car in front of us who was provoking us all the time. It was driving fast, stopping, driving fast, stopping. And eventually they rammed our car off the road and my mom got killed. So it was basically an intentional situation. So I lost my mom at age 17 in Italy. You know, here again, same story. You know, I'm in a different country and it's a tragic incident. I was 17 at the time, and 17 years later, a similar incident happened, but in California.
Oh, wow.
So it's exactly 17 years in between both. And so at that time, I went back to Sweden and I felt kind of lost. I didn't care about anything. The only one I respected really was my mom. And when she was gone, I didn't really have respect for authority. I was hurt. You know, I was very hurt. I took it out and drinking alcohol with my friends and getting in, you know, doing all the kind of things that I should have been doing. You know, I was very focused before the incident, but after that incident, it was just like everything that I worked on, just I didn't care about nothing, honestly. But I felt that void, and I felt that I need to connect with my dad. And I didn't know where he lived. I knew he lived in Africa, but I heard that he was in Nigeria as well. But I told my sister, I said, you know, let's just take a charter trip, you know, to Gambia, because they had those cheap charter trips where you could go and stay for 2 weeks in a hotel for really cheap. And we were like, you know what, let's just do it. I was 17, she was 18, and we just went. Never been to the Gambia, didn't know anybody, and we didn't even know what our dad looked like or where he lived or nothing. We just had like those old photos. Mm-hmm. So we walked around and talked to different people. If they knew our dad, nobody knew. And this is interesting too, when you speak about the Bible. When we were on the beach, there was a guy called Abraham, out of all names, who used to come all the time and ask us if we wanted to go to a safari in Senegal, which is the neighboring country that surrounds the Gambia. And they wanted us to go to Gora Island, where the port of no return, which a lot of the slaves were taken from. And we were like, kind of wanted to be in the Gambia. We wanted like see our dads. It was like, no, we're good. But he came every day, asked us. We said, no, we're good. Then we switched to a different hotel the second week. And here he comes again. We see him again. We're like, this is crazy. Like, this guy keeps coming. And I told him, I says, you know what? I know he already thinks that we're going to turn him down, but let's surprise him today and just say, yeah, let's go on the safari. So when he comes close, we was like, you know what? I'm going to go with you on the safari. And we get on the bus, and I walk past him, say, what's up? And he stops my sister and he says, what's your name? She says, Dominic. And he says, what's your last name? She says, Jassy. And he says, what's your dad's name? And she says, Dr. Jibril Ahmed Jassy. And he goes, that's my friend. And he lives 20 minutes away from here.
Wow.
Standing there and like, are you serious? It's like, yeah, hold on. He gets off the bus. He makes a phone call, because at that time they didn't have no cell phone. Makes a phone call, and he says, you know what? I just spoke to your dad, and after Senegal, we're going to stop by his clinic and you're going to meet your dad. So we're like, this is the guy that kept coming, and we was like, no. But it was like, God,
bringing him to you, and y'all was like, nah, I'm good.
Just sending him. So eventually we come, and this is a tourist bus full of white Swedish tourists and us. And he's telling them, oh, these kids, we're just going to stop here because these kids going to see their dad. And they're like, oh, you know, we didn't sign up for this. What's going on here, you know?
Right.
But we went there, and when we came to the compound, our whole family was there. My grandma, my cousins, my dad. It was just a an ocean of people, and they were just standing there singing, dancing, and were just welcoming us. And it was just tears falling down. We hugged our dad, and it was a crazy thing. And I remember walking into my dad's office, and as I walked in, I saw a picture on the wall, and it was me and my sister.
Wow.
That to me was like, they didn't forget about us, and it was like, even though he wasn't present, I forgave him like immediately, because we lost a mom, but we gained a dad. So I was just grateful to have my dad back in my life, and I didn't want to waste 1 minute of being bitter or like, why did you leave us? I was just happy to be there and to just see our family and to finally learn about that part of our culture. So I was just amazed, and I kept contact with my dad and my brothers and my siblings, and I go there every year. And so once I eventually got out, I decided I have to go to Gambia to see my dad. And I came there and I saw him, and the whole family celebrated his 79th birthday. And August of last year, he passed away. So if I would have came out of prison 10 months later, I would never see my dad. So I know God is in this. I know God blessed me with a second chance to see my dad. But man, I'm telling you, I believe in forgiveness, and I believe that everybody has their reason for why they can't be present in their child's life. But that made me, with me and my son, made me more adamant that I really want to be present in my son's life. Yet I jeopardized all of that night, in Hollywood. I still went out of the car because, hindsight 2020, if you're a dad, you have no business being on the streets fighting and jeopardizing, losing your freedom, first of all, or being a bad example for your kid, just being out fighting. But of course, I've learned that throughout the years, and it's easy to look back in retrospective. But my hopes is always that somebody else that had have a similar situation that I had back then could like see me as a warning or like an inspiration, and be like, you know what, I can use this. Or there's always somebody that can benefit from other people's mistakes. And I know I learned more in prison from people's mistakes than I've learned in my professional life from people that's been successful. Because I believe you learn more from people that fail, but constantly get up and keep going. Because nobody's perfect, but if you willingly and genuinely strive to be a better person, you're never gonna be perfect. Never gonna be perfect. But if you genuinely have that will, you can do that change and make that change. And I think it doesn't matter how many times somebody else tells you. And I was very sure about that too. Like when I was doing the mixtape, I didn't want to talk to them. I wanted to talk with them and see how we could just meet, because I don't think it ever works if I just come and tell them like, don't do this and don't do that and don't do this, but more like, how can we use this situation and do something positive out of it?
No,
I always look back because
I think that's a good thing, man. And that's pretty much as you see me come in and quit. And I try to be the same way with those guys, man. I got a lot of stories to tell, man, because I made a lot of bad mistakes along the way, man. And right when I got that one fixed, I made another bad one. And so, just been a lot of tragedies and a lot of bad mistakes that, hinders us and stops us, from really actually reaching our goals. And so, man, I completely can understand where you're coming from and from that perspective. Always, man, have a great amount of respect for you, brother. I mean, just from the very first day that I've met you, and just just didn't really know you, but was like, I want to know that brother a little bit more. Just have a conversation, and your smile, man, you just was always upbeat, and you was I know you made the best of what you had, man, but I do want to, because our time is up, man, but I do want to have another conversation, probably just on the fatherhood piece, man, because, your story is extraordinary, man. And it's just the best is yet to come, man. I just can't wait to see what the end result is going to be, because you didn't go through what you went through just to say that you've been through it. You know, I'm working on a message that I'm going to be preaching at this church in a couple weeks, and it's called Battles and Blessings. You know, battles and blessings, you know, because you're going to have some battles and you're going to have some blessings. And sometimes there are different tracks, man. Just when you get the blessing, then comes the battle, man. And you just got to be able to, you know, to deal with them as they go, as you have, man. And but man, let's listen to the song, man. Play the song for us on the way out, man.
All right, so this song is Dinero G, and he's the guy that I talked about before, who had his grandfather in prison. And it's on the San Quentin Mixtape Volume 1, and you can find it on all streaming platforms.
Aye, look, now I'm in the same prison that my grandfather. He said it ain't no hard to why we still trying. I got tired of days to see my mother cry. I realized I lived fast, I was slowly dying. Take a look at my past, no, I ain't lying. Grandfather was in prison, was selling dope. When my mother pregnant with me, tell her where to hold. She was only 13.
Hold on, let me play. I want to play it through different speakers.
Okay.
Let me run it back for you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Hey, look, now I'm in the same prison that my grandfather. Ain't no hard to why we still trying. I got tired of days to see my mother crying. I realized I living fast, I was slowly dying. Take a look at my past, no, I ain't lying. Grandfather was in prison for selling dope. While my mother pregnant with me, tell her where to hold. And she was only 13 at the time. Who knew that baby in the stomach live a life of crime? Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. But now he out and he's dead, so he really changed. Miss my baby, wish she here, so I'ma do the same. And I'm on the way, just know I'm coming. I just hope when I come home that she still love me.
And I'm on the way, just know I'm coming. I just hope when I come home that she still love me.
Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother. Now I'm in the same. Tell me where was you when the strokes came? Was all alone and every day I was wearing chains. So expect the same treatment when they come around. It's funny how people change when they see you down. It's they can see me now. The grind never stopped. I'm just trying to see the view from the rooftops. Just wanna see some things I ain't seen before. Cause all I ever seen was friends come and go. Took a lot of years in prison just for me to grow. Mother used to pray to God for a miracle. She couldn't stand the life that her son chose. Used to cry and ask me when I'ma let it go. Getting tears as I write the verses. All the pain throughout the years and know it still hurt. Shedding tears as I write these verses. All the pain throughout the years and know it still hurt. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. If I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. If I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother. Now I'm in the same. And things ain't been the same for a while now. There's days when I used to see my daughter smile. Just wanna show your mama did a thing or two. I feel the pain from the day I lost her to you. But I don't blame my ex for leaving, cause I was blind by the streets and I couldn't see it. Wish I could take it back, wish I could change things. Used to hide from the facts cause the pain it brings. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter.
Yes, there it is. Rolling on cut.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, I appreciate you, David, man. I know it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock p.m. there, man, and you took the time out to holler at your boy, man. Hey, man, much success. Know that I'm praying for you all the time, man. And I'm always looking to see a way that, God will open up another door for you. What was that?
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother, and I wish you the same. And I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, San Quentin. I've seen you come in, tirelessly, just walking with the brothers and talking to them, and the people that you touch, they walk away from talking to you with a smile and they feel encouraged, and I can testify to that. You impacted my life, and I know you impact a lot of brothers in San Quentin. So I thank you for that work, and I pray that you keep doing it, man, and bringing more people with you, because people like you are definitely needed. Good brothers that want to help, guys that made the wrong decision in life but that want to change, man. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm honored to be on your show because I know it's real, and I know you come from a good place, brother, and I thank you.
Absolutely, man. Well, we'll stay in touch, man. Don't be surprised, man. One day I might tell you I'm coming to Dubai, man.
You're more than welcome, man. You're more than welcome.
All right, man. Love you, brother. God bless you, man.
All right. God bless you too. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.